To you, Dr. Jodi Enos Berlage. And Jodi has been a part of the Luther faculty for 22 years in the Department of Biology, and her special interests are soil and microbiology and health of the soil, yes, as well as thinking about the role of women and just empowering them in the sciences and all sorts of things. What you will learn, and I've got the privilege of learning from Jodi, is she is a woman of many interests, which is one of the things I love about her. And I think partly led her to do the work specifically here at Rochester that she's doing. Jodi also has a role at Luther as the director of the Rochester semester program, which is going to be, I think, the focus mostly of her conversation today, as well as work in career services at Luther and assistant dean kind of work and making sure internships and all those kinds of things with students. So Jodi is very, very deeply involved in all sorts of things Luther. That is her professional. She's also done the Big Ten circuit. I learned today, I've known Jodi for years, and I was like, oh, you went to the University of Urbana and Madison for your PhD and did a fellowship at Iowa. So then you went to a liberal arts college, which is really awesome. So I want to hear part of that story someday. Anyway, as a personal note, I have had the joy of getting to work with Jodi in lots of ways as we have talked about having the Rochester program and Luther students here at Zumbro. And I can tell you, she is awesome, deeply connected, and thoughtful in when we're talking about vocation and call, right? As we just were up in worship, Jodi is a person to listen to, a voice to listen to when it comes to vocation, and she helps a lot of students articulate that in their own lives. And it's really fun to see a faculty member that's student-centered, and that is one way I would describe Jodi, is she advocates deeply for her students, and that is just awesome. So it is my privilege to introduce you to Dr. Jodi Enos Berlage, and I think she will introduce her students at some point. Okay, welcome, Jodi.
Thank you. So I'm going to shout right back at you, Jen, because Jen, oh my gosh, what an asset you have here at Zumbro and Jen Grudler.
Am I sharing the sound down a little bit? It's a little too high?
I can hold it back too, if that's better, but thank you for that. Please, if I do that, yeah, just please give me a message and I'll respond to that. Anyway, Jen has been central to our engagement and our success in this collaboration and in this program because of the connections that she has been able to do, the hospitality that she's coordinated. And I will just say at the very front end, I want to practice gratitude for this congregation and organization. I want to start with that. And I want to let you know how I describe this congregation to everyone I meet in Rochester, in Luther, or anywhere else. This congregation defines radical hospitality. That's how I describe it. And that's not a term I've ever used to describe another organization because I'm so taken, and on behalf of the students too, that with what you have just generously offered and enabled. I mean, what I'm going to focus my talk about today is trying to first share with you more details about this program, and then pieces of how this congregation and its people intersect with that, support it, enable it, and I want you to see the impacts. And so I really was uncomfortable coming without the impacts, and so I'm going to ask Alon and Gazelle just do a quick introduction to themselves because I want to do it now so that you have names and faces in the context of what I want to talk about.
My name is Alain Ishimwe. I'm from Burundi and Rwanda. I graduated a month ago from Luther in physics. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Gazelle. I was born in Syria, but my nationality is Palestinian. And I'm a senior at Luther College, majoring in computer science. I will graduate next semester.
So one of the things that you've heard is, we have real strengths and global strengths at Luther, both with how many students we send out across the world, and many of them are out. It's J-term right now. So 70 or 80% of our students at some point study abroad, and also with the students that we bring at Luther. So we're in the top 60 colleges in the country for our percentage of international students, and we're in the top 15 from the students from United World Colleges, which are a set of colleges like high school, upper high school, that collect people from kids from all over the world and bring them together and mash them up into this amazing experience. And I think at least one of you is at UWC, or both of Gazelle and Alon are UWC. So literally, yeah, they bring the world to us, and we're grateful for their presence. So I'm gonna spend some time highlighting pieces of the program, and then get through some nuts and bolts and some impacts, and then I hope that we have some time and just hand over the mics to the student products, because that's why we're here. So takeaways that I want you to. So this is a program that has major impact. It has internships as its focus, an immersion internship. That's 20 hours a week on site. We don't do anything like that on campus to that degree. So it allows students to prototype a career while they're still in college and with the support of their peers and faculty, before they have to make some big commitment for graduate school or professional school or a job without having done this. And the focus on internships, this is the #1, study after study, #1 experience sought by employers, not only employers, but professional and graduate schools. So an immersion, significant experience related to what you want to do. And that's great, right? They want to know that you know what you're getting into, and you want to know that you know what you're getting into. Both the great things about it and the not so great things about it, because there is nothing that exists that's only great things about it. And so it enables the full power of a Luther liberal arts education, and this is made possible by your congregation. And so I'm going to highlight ways in which that happens throughout the presentation. So this is just a bit more detailed. So this is a semester-long program, experiential learning at its core. It is designed for mutual benefit. So what do? Deep learner of students and their interests and motivations and drivers, and then also deep learner of Rochester organizations and people and needs. And then I'm looking for overlap. And so I'll do a shout out to a couple people in your congregation right now that I have learned so much from. And so one is Ann Beatty, was central to the information gathering, and multiple members of your congregation were. But Ann sticks out, she took a full day and took myself and a Luther faculty member. We took a whole day, and she set up all these appointments all over with organizations in Rochester, introduced us to people to help us understand needs and help them understand what we were hoping to achieve. And so she helped us join the Rochester network. And if there's anyone that is networked, it's Ann Beatty, I've learned. And I also want to do a special shout out to Dr. Bruce Horostovsky, who's also a member of your congregation, because Bruce, he's the Associate Dean of the Graduate School at Mayo, and also the Director of the Office of Postdoctoral Training and Research, it's OPART. But he has been, so I basically gather a group of students, I accept them based on criteria, which the most important criteria for me to find is what motivates you. And then I gather them together, and if I'm trying to figure out places that might be good for them, and their interest is in research, I connect with Bruce, and then he helps me because he knows so much about the inside workings and research and labs at Mayo, and so those key connection points have absolutely enabled what we're doing, and there are multiple members of your congregation that are part of that. So we have invested here because of these things, which I'm sure you are well aware of. This is what students get to do. It's a spring or fall semester, and the important thing, very important actually, really attractive, is that it can be combined with a full-time summer or full-time J-term. So instead of a 3.5-month experience, this can easily flex, if everyone is interested, into a 6 to 7 month, even an 8-month experience. And what that means is that's a really substantive experience for the student. They get not only their feet wet, they get to contribute. They are then empowered to contribute substantially to projects. And it also is it helps with the return on investment of the organization, because they get more return on their investment in onboarding this new person, and the person didn't just get their feet wet in the operations, but they got some know-how and confidence, and now can start leading some things on their own while they're still there. So that's a huge benefit, and it fits with the mutual design. So we planted our flag, literally. This is outside of our housing facility up on Center Street. It's Roth, but it stands for Residence Old Town Hall. We launched in the spring of 2020. We're really excited. Let's go. And it was great. And then COVID hit. And so it was a major disruption, but everyone pivoted. And I would say we have just been innovating as we have needed to as we go since that time. These are some folks that you may have seen in and about. Victoria Chrisman is the director for the Center of Global Learning. Julie Samil is the off-campus program coordinator. So our Rochester Study Away program, Luther's closest study away, is umbrellaed under the Center for Global Learning. And then all, Victoria, Robert, and Shar have been involved with teaching the Paideia course up here. And I want to give a special shout out to Robert Chrisman. He is the one that we partnered together, along with the Career Center Director at Luther, for over 18 months to develop this idea, gather information, and pitch it to Luther leadership. And then, we've been involved with launching it. So Robert's taught more of the Paideia courses than anyone else. So these are the three parts, and Robert and I always refer to them as the three-legged stool, because if you take any one of these out, the program doesn't work. We absolutely needed a way to have secure housing in Rochester. We talked a little bit about the internships. It's the reason that we're focused here. We wanted them to be substantial, which is how they've developed. But then the academic program, of which our home here is generously provided, is course. We don't want to overload students, but we want to have key courses. This is a place-based, community-integrated course that's required for every student to graduate, and it's topical. I'm going to tell you what the one is here. And then this is a course that I teach that integrates with a student internship. All right, so this is the Paideia course. This is this is the title that Robert chose. Rochester, the Mutator City. And we recognized immediately, and because everyone told us, we have a very rich environment here to, through an ethical lens, explore the opportunities and challenges of a city undergoing rapid change. And so Robert, the way he designed the course, these are the sorts of regular speakers that we have. The mayor, the executive director of the DMC, central people in housing, so the director of the Diversity Council. So really key leaders involved in broad sectors. And as Patrick Sieb shared last fall when I attended the Destination Medical Center annual meeting, he said, you know, he said, this is tough work, and I get a lot of tough questions from the community. He said, I'll tell you what, there's no tougher crowd than a group of Luther students in this class asking me questions about what we're doing up here. So I took that as a compliment. So this is my course. This was in spring of 2021. So we do most of our courses here in this space now. This was up in the Caros room, and actually right outside in the lounge. And so this is a course that is focused on integrating both where they're coming from with their current internship, and we're helping them develop things for where they want to go and how that applies. And I'll share some, I brought a few of the textbooks that I pull from for this class just to show you. But we look at things like launch your career, step-by-step guide on how to generate social capital, which I would say is my main job in Rochester. Find your why, like what is your life's purpose? This is our kind of anchor book, a design thinking approach towards life and career, designing your life. And so students work in pod groups, but what I want to emphasize here is that doing this work with peers is huge, because the whole cohort, inevitably, every start, so it'll be happening again in February, we start with things like imposter syndrome, and am I good enough? Like, I'm going into this community an organization that seems to really know what they're doing and have their stuff together, and they, so there's this, and then they realize over the course of the semester, they're definitely good enough. They did not get to where they are by not being good enough. And so we end with confidence, as I've heard both of these students express, and I get to witness that transformation. So that's the most powerful and rewarding part of my job, is seeing what can happen in that span of time through multiple factors. So I'm gonna give you just a couple of things that give you a taste of like the sort of stuff that we do in this class. This is one of them. And I'm sure like this is the reality, right? But students have, and to some extent all of us, we have this vision that if it's somebody else we're looking at, it looks like this from the outside. And we all know that that's not the reality. If you ask anyone's story, it looks like this. This may have been an internship that pivoted this direction, or the opposite direction, right? So these are key pivot point experiences that somehow had an influence on that person and caused them to shift. And I will also share that, you see, you're gonna hear a little microbiology coming into this talk, because at 4 a.m. this summer, I was awake in bed, and I was like, I don't know why I was up. I wake up early, but this entered my head, and I'm like, I've seen that before. I know I have seen that image before, but where is it? Where have I seen that sort of look? And then I figured it out, and it was like, it blew my head. Yeah, it was an epiphany. This is how bacteria move. And so they move in a way that is never in a straight line, never. And this is after 3.5 billion years, way, way more than we, big head start on their part of evolution. They have not evolved to move in a straight line towards something they're attracted to, ever. Instead, they'll get signals that extend their straight lines, but they'll go in a straight line and then they'll bumble around for a little bit, then they'll go in another straight line, bumble more. And so what they're doing is they're sampling for their whole life, their environment. Because if you moved in a straight line, well, it appears you'd be at a disadvantage because the ones that evolved that don't exist anymore. They didn't make it. So I compared this, I try to make this analogy. So my microbiology students in the fall, yeah, they get this same slide. So these are the ways to bumble around. And they can be anywhere from having a one-day job shadow or a conversation with someone to a volunteer position, like an open table, which has been happening with our students here, to a work study, a research project, or here's what Rochester is. And then a gap year would be that too, even more to the extreme. Higher investment on this end, also higher impact, but these are just as valuable for your return on your investment. So these are the sorts of things that come out of my Career Center work as I work with students to help them, navigate that journey. So these are just a couple of quotes, and I want to be sensitive to time. Bottom line is, internships are critical, and experiential learning is critical. That you cannot figure out what you want to do with your life through coursework. It provides traditional coursework. It provides a really important piece and a foundation, a central foundation, but you've got to experience something. You've got to feel it. You can't just learn about it. And so that's a big focus in the program. So I want to emphasize, the nursing program has been here for 40 years, and it's been a large connection with Zumbro as well. And that's a really focused, specific major, and it's fantastic program at filling a critical need. This program, I just want to emphasize, is open to all majors. And if you look at these sorts of things, and you know Rochester better than I do, but what I have gotten through a variety of contacts and continued engagement is that there are all of these things in Rochester. And so there's huge opportunity here, not just for science majors, but for others. So here's some impacts. This was a survey from last spring's group. They're pretty much in favor. And so I was really excited to see this. And now I'm just going to quickly run through a few slides about some of the key things that I think come out of it. So, out of my comfort zone, I would still be clueless of what I wanted to do if it were not for this program. It builds skills and confidence. So Gabriel works at Google now. His Rochester experience was key to that transition. And he worked in the medical science, the imaging core, just close to here actually, and had a great experience. Gabriel, I discovered when I asked him what his third life design is, and by the way, everybody has to have 3. And the third prompt is, what would you do? First prompt is, what is that thing you're working on now? Second prompt is, what if that thing you're working on now became obsolete overnight? And you need to do something else. And the third prompt is, what would you do if money and image were no object? That's my favorite. And this computer science major who works at Google said, what I really want to do is become a competitive ballroom dance instructor. And I'm like, wow. And then we learned that we both share a love for movement and dance. And he then, at the end of the semester, asked me if I would be his partner in competing at Luther's next Dancing with the Stars competition, which is where students, as students in the ballroom dance class or club, they ask faculty or staff to be their partners. And then we are literally we worked for 2 months together, Gabriel and I. I mean, they came and videoed each of the partners as they were learning. And then, then we were up on stage and doing our thing. So that's kind of a special story about Gabriel. But turns out that both Gabriel and I, we didn't know this, we both have, if you do Clifton Strengths, or if you are aware of that, we both have competition in our top 5. And that turns out to have an impact in a contest like that. So we ended up doing pretty well. But it was really fun. I loved working with a student in that capacity. Not as me as an instructor, but as me as an equal, actually totally a learner. All right, building community through shared experience. So this just shows some of the things. This is the ice, the social ice, and then doing meals together, learning together, building social capital. This is huge. The connections that our students make with the people that are in their organizations and around them, that's actually the biggest impact of the program, I think, honestly. And I'll invite, students to connect on any one of these points. So building opportunity for next step. So this is that same group. This was the number of students out of 17, 9 that were offered to extend full-time into the summer. So that says something. That says something's going really well. This was the number of students, another 8, where it had a direct impact on their next step, like critical, point, connection, social capital, or experience that helped them achieve their next step. So the students really enjoy being here. And then I want to highlight now what we did this fall. We did a little experiment. And our experiment was, okay, you're going to see a couple capstone posters in a moment from these students. And we usually present them internally in this room. And then I met some folks at Discovery One Discovery Square that do programming. And so we came up with this idea, what if we did their capstone experiences publicly? And of course, that's really nerve-wracking because, you don't know how it's going to go. It's a first-time thing, but I'm like, okay, this is what we do. We practice first times. And so we decided to do it. And Jen says, well, we always like to do something for finals. We'll prepare lunch before your students walk up to One Discovery Square and spend a couple hours presenting their stuff to a public audience. That's lunch. I was expecting like sandwiches, piece of fruit. No, that's not how Zumbro does it. 2 different soups, breads. This is a glorious fruit salad. These are like and a green salad. I mean, condiments, and then a full spread of different types of drinks and cookies. Like this is normal. This is normal. And so this was the 3rd or 4th time the Zumbro congregation had provided meals to our students, and not just the Rochester, to the entire nursing students at Roth. So that's what I mean. And then we went up there, and then you see Zumbro members. There's Jen. She's looking high up at that screen as we prepared to start these presentations. And this is another shot. But it went really, really well. This is a comment from a Luther board member that was there. Because they got to see where the students land at the end. And so these are, their teammates came, their supervisors came, All right, I wanted to show you I collect data. So pre-test and post-test. This is just things I asked the students before they started and at the end. And so I'm looking for where we've had progress. And so testing out multiple career paths, building social capital, developing a LinkedIn profile and a resume, get confidence in connecting a job search, or getting myself unstuck, seeking others' help in life design. So I'm excited about that product. So here's another product. A fall Rochester student, Maddie Eppert. She also graduated in the fall. She is Zumbro's new open table coordinator, and oh my gosh, her strengths are so perfectly suited for this. She wrote about it. She dipped into it and was doing it a little bit, and she wrote about it in her assignments. And it just felt so good to her, and it aligns with her just incredible organization, on task, wanting to do for others. And so, she's continuing that work and through next summer, I believe, because she's taken a position at Mayo, built out of her internship. So if you see her around, yeah, well, this is an introduction. All right, here's just a last slide. Yeah, this is not this class, but a different, like, gift bags at the end of the semester, just spontaneously happening from Zumbro. And this was at the beginning of the semester. You were part of the scavenger hunt, but this is this group, Gazelle and Alon, when they were at Quarry Hill, which was also part of that. So special shout outs to folks we engage with a lot, Jen and Carrie, like all the time, Sarah as well through the mission work, and Rob as well, and so we just really appreciate all that support. So I am gonna hand it over to students and then pull out their posters, and yeah.
You can say whatever you want to fill the space while I do that.
I'm on the spot, so. My name is Alain, like I said. I was part of the fall program. I interned, sorry, excuse me, at a lab. It's called, okay.
If you want.
All right. The lab is called Assistive and Restorative Technology Laboratory. Like I said, I majored in physics. When I went to Jodi, looking for the program, I had no idea there was a place for someone like me, because when we heard about it, Rochester semester, Mayo, all I was thinking about is biochemistry people, computer science people. So I didn't see myself. But when I was encouraged to go speak to her, I remember the first words she told me. She said, some of the greatest discoveries in the biomedical field, they are made when physicists enter the room. Yeah, so that was kind of, an inspiration, a motivation, an idea, okay, maybe there's space, right? So I interned in this lab, and it's dedicated to improve the quality of life of people with injuries. So the spinal cord injury and wrist injury. So the project I was part of was an imaging project, and it's called 4D CT imaging. They are trying to develop a way to diagnose wrist injuries using the CT scanner. And 4D is 4-dimension, 3-dimension with time. They want to make a movie. The traditional methods of diagnosing these injuries are invasive and they are painful to patients. So this is non-invasive, it's a CT scanner, and they are having patients move around. It's effective, you can see more as you make the patients move their wrist. There is greater chances to see that ligament torn. You can see a greater displacement between bones. And that's the key. We were looking at bones, we're looking at how far from each other they are. And that requires a lot of physics knowledge, I would say. The CT scanner obviously using radiation to visualize what's happening inside the body, and just the computer skills, the computational analysis. We're using MATLAB, which is a programming language to compute and image and process these images from the CT scanner. So that was the main part of my job or my place there. At first, it was very intimidating for me, I would say. She talked about imposter syndrome, because there was just so much I didn't know, but I was interested, I was excited, I wanted to be there, but there was so much to learn, and all I would see is PhD people and engineers, aerospace engineers, and I'm like, I'm just an intern. I'm just a physics undergrad, that's all I do. But it came in handy because I was enthusiastic. I personally connect with their mission, improving people's lives, the quality of life. So I connected with that, and the project itself spoke curiosity in me. While working with a CT scanner, for example, the images were blurry because it's like taking a picture of a moving car. It's gonna be blurry. It's not gonna be nice. But because of that excitement, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to say, I don't like this. So they set up with me. They set up meetings for me with people who set up the experiment, medical physicists on campus, just for me to, okay, what can be done? Why is it wrong? And they told me, okay, this was wrong. Okay, I went and read papers and watched lectures and trying to figure out how to solve it. I was so committed. I was so obsessed. I really thought I could solve this. But it came out that what they have is the best they could get. However, it was a window open for me to really see what I'm really passionate about. I knew I wanted to continue further with physics, but I didn't know what kind of physics. I have experience in particle physics on campus, doing research. But I wanted to do more than just studying matter at a fundamental level. I wanted to connect with actually improving the quality of life. And medical physics, boom. That was like stumbling on a gold mine, for me, when my advisor told me, please explore medical physics for me. And while working with the CT scanner, that's one of the medical physics applications, I was like, okay, this is exactly the field I want to get into. So that's one of the high impacts of this internship for me. It helped me discover my actual career path. I didn't know that before. I think the other impact is the confidence, like she said. We get into this, we don't know if we're good enough, but I'm telling you, each problem we had with the code or the computational analysis, we solved it. We interns, we solved it. And that earned us the right to join a new project, which was the GRIP project, where they're having patients grip just to grip. And with this, you can't tell which bone is moving. Me and my other, because we're two physics students, we figured this out the last day of our internship. And we earned our right to be on the paper that's going to be on this project. So it's just a confidence level, like she said. We go in there, we don't know, but you see contributing to this organization. It's high ranked in the world. So that was the highest impact for me on top of career orientation. Yeah. So I thank Jodi, I thank the program. I'm grateful for Zumbro offering us a space, like she said, the comfortability, the hospitality, just feeling like we are home, and the classes will just make us more conscious of what we're part of. Studying Rochester, while being part of this. So it was a symbiotic, a relationship. So I'm grateful for everything. Thank you. That's me.
I'll switch over, but before this closes, Mr. Bruce here is the person that connected me to your mentor, with Kristen. So I just wanted you to actually see and meet the person that was responsible for that.
Okay. Hi all, my name is Gazelle, as I mentioned before, and let's start. So my internship during fall semester was in Mayo Artificial Intelligence department, and it was specifically in Raz's lab. This is a lab that we started very recently. We were all a new team, a new lab, new everything. And this lab is currently dedicated to build assistive tools for physicians to help in diagnosing and comparing patients. And for now, it's especially a tool for comparing cancer patients using whole slide images. This is an example of a whole slide images. The images we are working on, they usually come of images of human tissues, and these tissues are studied to see if a human has cancer or not based on these images. And so I'll come back to the details of the internship, but first, so I'm a computer science major, interests in problem solving, communication, building things, and creative work. There's a gap between computer science and creative work maybe, but I really enjoy artistic stuff. For example, building this poster is something I enjoy and designing it. But I think there are always ways to connect it, because at the end, problem solving is also a creative process. It's also about coming up with new ideas and designing algorithms to solve something, to solve a problem. So that's that. And for career goals, currently I'm hoping to work as software engineer after I graduate, still in the process of looking for jobs and things. Maybe I'll come back to Mayo, maybe not, we'll see how that goes. Still, it's a confusing part of senior year. And yeah, for coming back to the internship highlights, so I worked in the Harvard building. It's about 7 minutes walk away from here, or even less. And one of the biggest highlights was seeing my team grow. So I was actually the first person in the team to arrive to the lab after my supervisor. So it was, at the beginning of it, it was very lonely. There was no one there, and then slowly more members were being hired, and they also were working. They came from like other countries, and they were working on their visas. So slowly seeing more people come into the lab was something fascinating, and seeing how it's different when you're working alone on a project in a lab, and then when you see more people come in and do teamwork is so much better. And also it was getting to see how artificial intelligence works and how it can be applied to medicine. So my major, computer science, it can be a step to start getting into artificial intelligence, but it's a very beginning step. And then I didn't really know how much there are very helpful and crucial applications of computer science and artificial intelligence, especially in medicine. So seeing that was actually very interesting, and it gets me to value more how what I'm doing and what I'm studying. It's not just for building luxury tools or apps or something like that. It's also for medicine. It has a lot of applications. And so the process in the internship was mainly for the tasks. I was working on developing Python code to segment and patch whole slide images. So again, going to the whole slide images, these usually, if you know, internet maps, Google Maps or Apple Maps, these maps are usually an image of Earth, and then you zoom in, and then you see the United States, and then you zoom in, you see Rochester, and so on and so forth. So these images have the same structure. They're really huge images, and they come in as a pyramid structure. The more you zoom in, the more you see details about the cells in that images and all that. So processing these images turns out to be a very difficult task for computers, and so we can't just feed in the images as they are to the computer. We have to one way to do it is to cut them into smaller images, smaller patches, and process them like that. And also for that, we have to recognize which part of the image is the background and which part is the tissue. So that's also segmenting the images. So mostly I was working on developing programs and codes to help with that. And these are some logos of the tools I used and all of that. So. And for accomplishments and outcomes, it was mainly developing these tools, but I was actually the first intern. So as I mentioned before, the first intern in the team, and I was actually the first in-person intern in the department. So it was all very confusing. So I worked on developing a resource guide. I tried to gather all the resources I've used during the internship and add it in one document or one thing, and so that it can help for future interns. In this internship, I also learned so much more about deep networks and artificial intelligence than I could ever learn in class. It's really when you're learning in an internship environment, it's so different, because if you're learning in a class, the worst thing that happen is that you fail the class if everything goes bad. But when you're working, when you're building something, you can't have that as an option, just failing it. You want to build something useful, you want to help someone. So so there's so much more responsibility, and I like that part. I like that you can see the direct results of what you're building. And so additional things, as Jodi was mentioning, part of this process is building professional relationships with people and building social capital. That was a big part of it as well. Although the team was still being built, I also get the chance to see other people in the department and meet people that have so much experience in the field. I gained so much perspective from this experience, For example, I definitely function better in team environments. I couldn't have learned that before. Before I thought like, yeah, maybe I could work in a remote job after I graduate, and I would never have to see people. I would just stare at a computer screen for 40 hours a week. But then I realized, no, I think I wouldn't function well like that. I need to see people, and I need to talk to them, and I need to design things with them, and discuss ideas and everything. I need to also know the people themselves more than just the logic and the work and everything. So yeah, and I also learned that asking questions is a skill. It was a little bit hard at the beginning for me to ask questions, but then slowly I realized how much difference it can make if you have the courage to ask questions always. And it's a skill that it's an asset that you can have. And so this was at the time when I talked about this poster at the beginning, it was still at the end of fall semester, and the next step was to extend my internship through January, which I did. I'm currently still working in the same lab, and I will be, it's until Thursday, January 26th. So yeah, that was part of it. I extended and I continued on working on deep networks, learning about them. It's been a very big opportunity to discover more of the big picture of how the project is going, because part of this whole work, it was starting things from scratch. A new team, knew everything. So starting the project from scratch, you don't have something to really build on. So you have the opportunity to put the starting point of everything and see how it looks, and also kind of determine how its future will look. So that's also a big part of it. And now I'm still seeing that. I'm still seeing all the different tools we are building under the same project, and that's also very helpful. And we might even start including other kinds of images, not only the whole site images of cancer tissues, but also more sorts of data. And yeah, I would also, I'm really thankful for this whole experience, for Jodi, for helping me to get to it. I mean, at the beginning, Jodi knew a lot about me and how, like, the different kinds of interests I had and the visions I had, and she was very helpful in reaching this opportunity. And I'm also very thankful for the kinds of courses that we discovered, especially in the course that Jodi was teaching. There was a part of it in which we had to see guest speakers, and they came and spoke about their experience, and it was really helpful to connect with them. And in the other course, for the Paideia course, it was amazing. Like, I've learned a lot about Rochester. Sometimes I would meet people from Rochester, and I would tell them that, you know, this and that, and they would be like, how do you know this? And you've been here for a month or two, how do you know all of that? And they're like, well, I have resources. Yeah, so that was part of it, and also that all of it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have also Zumbro Lutheran Church to be here, and they have helped us a lot with, especially as the meals, for example, that they have offered us in Roth, the place where we live, and here as well. It was a very interesting experience, and it was a chance to gather all of us, the team together, the cohort, and talk about our experiences. And yeah, that was it, I think.
They captured everything. They are my data points, so that you know I'm just not feeding you a line. But thank you, Gazelle and Alon, for coming and sharing your thoughts. I'm so grateful to work with students like this. But I would, yeah, if there's time, we'd certainly open up for any questions or curiosities or comments. Otherwise, and you certainly no requirement to stay. Yeah.
Alon will need to go to medical physics graduate school somewhere. Have you picked one out yet?
Can you share your question and what your process is?
You are very right. I have been talking to many, 4 medical physicists right so far. Right now, the best path they've helped me draw is to work in an environment where medical physics is at the core of what they do, and then use that to apply for grad school. So I'm currently talking to potential employers. So yeah, that is the plan.
And I'm going to share that he is talking to some very high-level schools and people, because I just wrote him a recommendation letter, and I included your why. You know that? I'll never forget it. His personal why: before I die, score a victory for humanity.
That is a quote I saw, and it just resonated with who I am and what I want to do. Yeah, so if you have more people I should talk to, reach out. Yeah.
Other questions?
You have many, many programs of subject areas. How can you coordinate with each of those? Are you prepared? Like if the person wants to study foreign language, for example, how would they do an internship here in Rochester? You know what I'm saying? This requires hours, and how to coordinate that, huh? And then I have another question. You know, the Mayo Clinic, of course, #1 here in Rochester, but can you tell us some of the other businesses that you've coordinated with?
So insightful questions. So yeah, I'm a microbiologist. I am not a physicist or a computer scientist or a linguist, but I am, like, my #1 strength is learner. And so what I try to do is, the starting point is always the students, whoever applies to the program. I try to learn from them and then let that be my driver. And so, for example, I had a Nordic Studies major, and so I met with him, and I don't. There's not necessarily a direct thing that comes to my mind with Nordic Studies, but I met with him, learned a lot about him. Really interested in people, really interested in equity. Nordic Studies and Norway, like there's a breadth of operations in Norway that are models for, in some ways, models for the world. And so but as the more that I talked to him, a place that Ann Beatty had introduced me to, the Rochester Diversity Council, popped into my mind. And so I shared more information about what they do, and I could tell he was lighting up. And so I thought, this could be, so then we further explored that. And that was a great match. I mean, he did an internship there, later got a job there, and then they have been a regular speaker in the courses, and the director. We've had probably 3 or 4 interns at the Rochester Diversity Council. We've also had interns in psychology, both at Mayo so privately at the Rochester Children's Center, or Autism Center. So and so working daily, like personally assigned to individual children to help them on their developmental path with autism. We've had multiple students placed right in the Destination Medical Center core group. Many of them with Kevin Bright, working on sustainability, community engagement. We had a student placed with the economic part of that was trying to, at scale, assess like the sorts of companies Rochester would like to attract to it. I just placed a first student with the City of Rochester Communications and Engagement team, and with the promotion and engagement with the Rochester Public Library. And so she's a visual communications major. And so she's going to be participating in that. But the county, so the city of Rochester and the county, that was the sector that was not on my radar, because I've learned, they cover so much of a range of majors. And so does Mayo, of course. It's not all set. I mean, there's a huge range of operations at Mayo. But yeah, how I do it is like, I learn the students' interests, and I'm like, let's go on a hunt. Let's see what we can find. And then I work through people. I go completely through people. None of these positions are advertised. We're building them. And so we're just building them through joining the Rochester network.
Are you finding cooperation with the city, with the places that you've come? Oh, I think that's awesome. Yes. Oh, this should be published. This should be broadcast. This is really awesome. You know what? Another thing just sparks in my head. You know, the Rochester Public Schools is talking about deeper learning and to have a better learning system. This would be awesome to actually go to Kent Pickle, the superintendent, and talk to him about what you've learned about bringing people together and what's important, you know, to have that position, have that job. One more job for you. Huh? Oh, I think it would be awesome. Okay, anyway.
I love your enthusiasm and your ideas. Thank you so much. But you can like this type of work does align with my like I like to learn. I like to envision future. I'm doing that all the time. And then I think strategy. And then yeah, as the other one of my strengths is called woo, and if anyone doesn't know what that is, it's winning others over. It means you bring energy to a situation, and you try to share, you know, ideas or what you have learned. I share what I've learned and try to, help others to. My personal why is to make the invisible visible, so that there can be positive impact for the world. So, yeah. Sing them, right?
Thank you for your presentation. It was great to hear about your experiences. Just curious about, if I know we're kind of short on time, but one or two maybe difficulties, challenges, or even failures that you've experienced on the sort of journey of creating this program. Just curious about what those might be.
Really insightful question as well. I would say navigating different organizations' onboarding procedures. That's been a real big one. Because they all have different sort of requirements, and Mayo has layers of onboarding. And then a department in Mayo would be different than another department in Mayo, and another. So this has been a huge learning curve for me that I'm honestly still trying to navigate. I mean, even with Gazelle's position, there wasn't a structure that would have allowed her to start in that department, and so a structure basically is in development now to do that. But they had kind of adopted from another department their structure to get Gazelle started. So that has been huge and just a constant navigational field. And some of that, but certainly not all of it, but some of that is due to 40-50% of the students have been international students. And so there are just additional, it's more stuff that needs to be addressed with an international student. But like there's huge value to, that's a window. These folks come here globally networked. They come to Luther globally networked because they're both from UWC schools. They've been living with 200, they did their last 2 years of education with 200 other students from all over the world. And then they come to us. And then we can learn, so these are the attributes that I share forward if someone is trying to figure out, well, what does it mean to have, what things I need to, additional paperwork or things, whatever it is for international students. And I would say another challenge that I face is just making sure that like we correct the biases at Luther College, that this isn't the nursing this is open to all major, I mean for both faculty, students, staff, so that everyone knows that this is open to all and that they know the impacts that I am witnessing every semester. They've got to know that. So I do this on a very regular basis, that I'm like, look at what's happening up here. And so that, because at Luther's very strong music school. We have a lot of athletes, dedicated folks to those sort of organizations, and those organizations are hard to leave for a semester. So we got to have we got to have students that are willing to see this impact for them, and then I mean we have other students that aren't in either of those. They don't. But we have large populations of those students, and this should be open to them too. So that means supportive students, staff, coaches, ensemble directors. So I would say that piece, and then, and we that's just I also get, man, I just love Decorah community, and I love Luther campus, and I love my people here. And when I said, that alerted me to, oh my, they don't realize, like, this is what I need to do. You will find new people here. You will join with another group of Luther students that you don't know yet, and they will become your people. And so that sort of community building, knowing that that is a part of the program, because students like to, I would totally get that. And they love Luther's campus. So I compete with the own great stuff about my campus. But yeah, I would say so far the Rochester organizations and community has been just so receptive to this idea. Excited about bringing a new, vibrant young person into their world and learning from them too, and helping them develop. So I've been really grateful for that. And yeah, hope we can continue to just spread into different directions.
How would this program be different if you didn't have the relationship with Zumbro?
And I don't even know if I want to try to answer that question. Our Rochester advisory group that was meeting for 18 months before we even made the decision to launch, we met in this room, and it was dominated by Zumbro members. And Chris Gotti is the chair. And Chris Gotti, here's what Chris Gotti did. He's like, oh, this has huge potential. And we looked at our alumni list and what others were in Rochester, and Chris Gotti just made phone calls. And he assembled a group, and they called themselves FOCs, which means Friends of Chris. And they became this huge source of information so they helped. I can't tell you how much. We wouldn't have been able to do it unless we had sort of an inside Rochester invested group helping to guide what this could be. And now, I mean, we teach all the classes here. We get a lot of internships through connections here. So it's absolutely huge. So I don't know if we would exist without Zumbro in this program. To answer your question.
I know some of us are. No, we're good. Thank you, Jodi. If you want to have further, I mean, she'll stick around for a few minutes, come up. I know it's way over time, so thank you guys for spending extra time with us. Thank you. We are very grateful. Thank you guys for getting up Sunday morning. Here you are. So thank you all.
Time management, not one of my strengths.
So
I count on others, my teammates,
yeah.
to help me.
So if you have other questions, feel free, I think, to ask them or say hello. Otherwise, go up to worship or go home, whatever you want to do. Thank